our roundtable discussion for today. Now, Ghana's tax system is actually undergoing a very major shift. Now, government says that the new direction is not about introducing more taxes, but about reducing the burden on businesses and households while improving compliance, efficiency, and revenue collection. If you listen to the finance minister last week, then you probably got that particular impression. Yes, and that is why they've cut down certain taxes and they've taking off e-levy and all of those taxes. And so that is what is happening now. But the big question remains that can Ghana sustain a model of tax cuts while still, raising enough revenue to fund development? How do we reconcile that? Those are the questions that we're asking. So this morning we're discussing tax cuts and revenue growth. Can Ghana sustain this new approach? And also we're examining the role of tax compliance in making this particular strategy work. My guest is Francis Timoboy. He is a tax analyst and he joins me over the phone lines for this conversation. Hi, Francis, good morning.
Good morning, Nick. I guess you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. I hope you're doing well.
Great. I'm fine. I hope you are doing well.
Yes, I'm doing well by God's grace. Thanks so much for making time to join us this morning.
Sure.
All right. Okay, so let's start from here. So we all know that over the years, our revenue mobilization strategy has often involved introducing new taxes and expanding our existing tax measures to increase government income. However, government now says that the approach is to reduce some taxes, provide relief to households and businesses, and also rely more on improved administration, compliance, and technology to increase revenue. From your perspective, how would you describe this new direction, and what do you think is the thinking behind this approach?
I think it's a smart strategy. It's a smart move, and it's workable. It's worked in other countries. First of all, it isn't that Ghana doesn't have enough taxes. We have a number of them. In fact, sometimes if you talk to some colleagues from other jurisdictions, they wonder why we have too many taxes like that. And so for government to all the time come to Ghanaians to increase taxes was a bit worrying. Think of e-levy, think of COVID-19. COVID-19 did not hit only Ghana, it hit almost every country. Yet we didn't have a special tax for such pandemic. So I think that the strategy is a smart one, but then Ghana can increase revenue without necessarily introducing new taxes. However, it will depend on how we are able to improve compliance, how we are able to reduce leakages and better the administration so that taxes can still be, collected without necessarily increasing the tax rates or introduce a new one. So that is the whole equation. The strategy is not just the tax cuts, but it is collecting more using the existing one. And so I was a bit happy with what the government announced, their intention, that don't expect new taxes. We are having a deliberate shift from the repeated imposing new taxes on the same compliant taxpayers to now a strategy of collecting existing taxes more efficiently and bringing previous on tax economic activity into the tax system. Think of the informal sector. So the two are very, distinct propositions. You can see a shift from more taxes introduced to more taxes through the collection mechanism.
I see. But what are the potential advantages of that particular strategy? What would that do?
No, you see, its impact is that we are not burdened. We are not burdened. You see, it is quite unfortunate that the same taxpayers go paying more taxes when you have a huge chunk of the economic activity not being taxed. You see, and let me give some few numbers from the mid-year budget that was read, and it shows that we don't need new taxes. We only need new enforcement.
Right.
For the first half of the year, the total revenue and grants that was budgeted, I think we achieved 124.78 billion, which is slightly below the budgeted number of 126 billion. Okay, income tax and property tax performed above targets. The only problem we had was the VAT and excise duty, which are consumption taxes. They fell below their respective targets. You could see that non-oil tax revenue improved from 12.6% to 13.1% of GDP, and the government itself has set a target of 14.1%. So it tells you that without introducing new taxes in the first year, government can still achieve the relevant revenue that they need. And if you look at the strategy that they are pursuing, they want to focus on VAT and excise duties, and then the international trade. Here we're talking about customs. So the benefit is that you are relieved. Okay, it reduces the burden on taxpayers. Taxes are also simplified. Look at the VAT that was restructured, the reform. You improve compliance so that everybody bears a smaller portion of the taxes.
Right.
Okay, and again, if you use technology too, you are going to prevent leakages. Nobody likes to see taxes being paid in and it goes into individuals' pockets. Look at what is happening at the port under declaration. And besides, like I said, you broaden the tax base instead of increasing the taxes. So for me, I think that the benefits are enormous. VAT reform, we increased the threshold from 200,000 to 750,000, which will now exempt small petty traders from the daily compliance. If you fail to file your returns alone, the penalties that are imposed on you are enormous. So for me, the benefits are enormous, and businesses have now a very comfortable environment to do their business. And at the end of the day, you see expansion in the economy. People are going to get more jobs.
I see. Now, I'm not too sure how long it would take for us to see those things, but government has abolished several taxes. We know of e-levy, we know of betting tax, COVID-19 levy, we know of emissions levy, and even VAT on motor insurance. Now, the argument is that these taxes place some pressure on households and businesses, and that removing them will create more room for economic activity. Are we already seeing those things happen? And what economic outcomes must be expected, or should we expect if these policies are really working as intended?
So first of all, you could see direct taxes which was supposed to have gone to government, not going anymore. Take for example, before the 2025 reform, if you buy every single item, you were paying 6%. So if the thing was 100 cedis, you pay 106 cedis, and 6 cedis were in the form of levies. To you, the businessman, that money must go to the government. Today, as we speak, COVID-19 has been abolished. So you have saved 1% there. Get Fund and Hill, you were not entitled to claim it as a deductible input tax. And let me explain this. See, businesses are not consumers. When they buy raw materials, their job is to convert the raw materials so that consumers like you and I will go and buy, and we are consumers. So it's a consumption tax. If you are in an economy and you want to grow your country, you want to build your country, you don't normally impose consumption tax on businesses who do not necessarily consume. So it is supposed to be shifted to the individuals. Now, the problem here was that 2018 August, we made businesses bear the cost, which was the Get Fund and Hill. So from that point, businesses had to absorb additional costs. Every container, every material you bought, you're going to bear that 6%. And for small business, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So immediately we scrap it or we restructured it, businesses are free. Either are supposed to come down or profit is supposed to go up. So that is the first initial benefit that we see. These are visible. Again, for the businessman, it creates a very predictable environment for him. He knows that no taxes are coming, and therefore he can do his business and plan his affairs very well. For you and I, consumers, when we are having a reduction in some of this cost of production or cost of materials, or which used to be in the form of taxes to the government, now those things are no more. We are supposed to see a reduction in the prices of goods and services that we buy. But here, let me throw a caution here. When the government reduced the taxes, what we observed was that many businesses now took the benefit to themselves. Take, for example, you go to a typical restaurant, the price of the plate of good, food is supposed to come down, but we realized that it didn't come down, Kali. Reason being that they are now pocketing the reduced taxes. Otherwise, some companies have really reduced prices, which is to a benefit to our benefit. So
Yeah.
clearly, the businessman, there is a predictable environment. People's disposable income is going to increase. For you and I, we are expected to see reduced prices, and this is good for us.
I see. Right. Okay. So it is good for us. Now, does it mean that the argument of some Ghanaians that the numbers that we are seeing, the macroeconomic numbers that we are seeing, or the improvement that we are seeing, is not really, they are not feeling it in their pockets? Does it mean that that particular argument is doesn't hold?
No, so we need to be careful when we are talking about economic growth and all these things. You see, when we talk about economic growth, the expansion, the economy is expanding. A lot of economic activities are going on. You go to the market and people are buying and selling, people are importing. You can measure these things. So we call it economic growth. The problem is, which side of the growth are we experiencing? Okay. Which aspect of the growth are you seeing? Because it is not everything. So if you look at the numbers that were produced by the media budget, the growth were in some selected areas. I think in the telecom sector, we saw some growth there. So the question is, do you have anything to do in the telecom sector? Do you do anything there? Another growth was in the mining. Are you in the mining area? Does anything concerning mining affect you? So if you are not in the mining area, the Minister for Finance will not announce 6.4% growth, which is driven by mining sector. If you are not there, certainly you won't feel it in your pockets. If you are in the agri sector, okay, and you are a farmer and you are in the agri industry, or you have anything to do with agri, certainly you are going to benefit.
Right.
So sometimes when we hear of the economic growth, we need to look at where is the growth coming from. Trade, which is mostly those of us in Accra, we do buy and sell, and import and export. If the growth is coming from that area, then certainly you are going to benefit. We also saw some growth in the education sector. So it's about where the growth is coming from.
Right.
If you are not in the area where it's growing, certainly you are going to suffer. And I wish that we will find another time and look at where the growth metrics are coming from. Then you can know who are benefiting and who are losing.
Right, but in terms of the taxes now, and it appears that everybody is benefiting one way or the other. We are feeling it in our pocket some way, some way somehow, isn't it?
Sure, as for that one, the taxes were mostly consumption based, and so as long as you're a consumer, you will certainly feel it one way or the other. Today, I know I don't pay COVID-19 anymore, so if I go to, let's say, a restaurant and I used to pay 100 cedis, I know 1% is off. That I am not supposed to pay anymore. So certainly you feel it.
Yeah.
The only thing we can say is that, well, maybe you may not see it, the magnitude. And of course, as businessmen, when such windfall comes, they will normally not pass everything on to consumers. So it's about competition and also the business attitude. If there's a reduction in taxes, should I pass on everything to the consumer in the form of reduced prices, or I should think of maybe increasing my profit so that at least into the investment I did, I'm getting some returns out of it. So it's a balancing thing.
Right. Okay. So we are saying this morning. I mean, away from that and back to some of the things that you've said already. We are saying this morning that it is realistic for government to reduce taxes or cut taxes and still be able to raise enough revenue. You said some countries are actually
Definitely.
doing it. Some countries are actually doing that. Are you able to, I mean, mention some of those countries and what the benefits have been for them?
Oh yes, you see, tax cuts. Um, Normally, some countries will look at it from three angles, or let's say four angles.
Mm.
The first angle is that when you reduce your taxes, you are going to see economic growth without increasing taxes, and this is how they see it. If a lot of activities are taking place, so before I have two cities, I could buy one ball of kenke. Today I have the same two cities, I could buy more. So in that case, the seller is going to sell more. So activities within the economy is growing. Now, they will also say we are not going to increase taxes, but we are closing the compliance gap.
Mm.
So businesses that fails to register, taxpayers that do not file their returns, employers who deduct PAYE but fail to pay, withholding tax agents who were not deducting, people who charge VAT and they were not paying. All of these things, we are closing on them through compliance, and we can still get our taxes.
Mm.
This will also see, let's reduce the tax expenditure. All the leakages, free zones, arrangements, custom warehousing abuses, let's close all of those ones. Others will also say, let's collect all the people who are owing tax arrears. So countries like Rwanda, they expanded the use of electronic billing machines to strengthen their VAT compliance. And you realize that they didn't increase taxes, and yet they were able to achieve it. South African Revenue Authority, they collect third-party information from banks, from employers, retirement funds, even medical schemes. Sometimes they go to the hospital and say, you are not working, so how are you able to fund this nice medical arrangements that you have?
Mm.
You are not working, but you own properties. How are you able to get all of these things? So they rely on these things to get information to enhance their compliance measures without necessarily increasing taxes, and they are comfortable. The
Mm.
reason is that don't increase taxes, collect the existing one. There are people in there who are not contributing. So for me, the lesson for Ghana is not simply to go and buy software or whatever. We have a lot of data available. Customs has data. The registrar of companies has data. Senate has data. Banks have data. Mobile money providers, even property records. Go to the Lands Commission. How do you harness all of these things
Mm.
like the other jurisdictions have? So government can still raise more revenue without new taxes, but the additional revenue must also come from, the compliance that we have, fewer
Mm.
exemptions and reduced leakages.
Right.
If there are abuses, let's close on those ones, and then we can increase it like other countries have done.
Mm. How long would it typically take us, and what are the risks if we did not materialize in the short term?
Normally, compliance takes time. As for that one, I won't lie to you.
Mm.
Compliance takes time. So, but the good thing is that you have to start. So talk of this deployment of technology that we have spoken about. Some can be immediate. For example, the
Mm.
publican AI that we have seen the customs import duties increasing drastically, dealing with under declaration. So it can take time, and especially because in our side of the economy, we need to formalize a lot of things. We have so much informal sector
Mm.
transaction happening at the blind side using cash. Sometimes I walk to Makola and I see the number of containers of loading, and there's no VAT. People are trading. So it will take time through education, through a lot of structured and intentional, and I mean intentional, like we being deliberate. The problem is that in most cases, almost every 4-year cycle, we have elections taking place.
Mm.
One government will come, change it, and then another government will come. So the things that we are supposed to pursue, sometimes we are unable to pursue them. Take, for example, the electronic device that the Minister of Finance announced. The MPP government passed the law in 2018. 2018 to 2026, how many years now? We are now going to implement it. So those are some of the worry. Otherwise, I believe that it's doable. We just have to be intentional that we are not going to introduce taxes like e-levy on people, transfer money to your mothers and all those things, and then trying to tax them, thinking that it's the easiest way out. We just have to be intentional about the revenue mobilization, and trust me, we may not need to increase. In fact, the taxes are even a bit higher. If you look at the benefit that we are getting today, if you're an employee, you pay a maximum of 35%. Yes, some countries have higher tax rates like Netherlands and all those, and they have higher tax rates. But over there, if you are sick, no matter what your sickness is, you just go to hospital free. From school, you don't pay anything, nothing. So the tax rates are still high, and I believe that if we cause rate increase and we pursue compliance, we'll be able to close the gap. It could take time, but a better start than not at all.
Not at all. I see. But the second part of my question was what are the risks if what we expect or the expected revenue gains do not materialize? What would happen?
Oh, that one is by default. We have to go back to IMF, and that is a risk I also see, because it looks like this year's budget, the whole revenue strategy was anchored on compliance. We said don't increase it. We are going to deploy technology, fiscal electronic device. So if NE goes to the mall and you buy, they must compulsorily give you a receipt, and we are going to connect their system to the GRA server so that they cannot also evade online sellers, people who sell online, whether services or goods. We are going to track all of them. Those who sell on what do you call it, X and Instagram and all those things. People are doing business there. How do we bring all of them into the system so that every transaction they sell, every income they make, we're able to track all of them? So compliance is the bedrock. The risk is that if we are not able to roll out these compliance measures, if we fail on the deployment of the technology that we are banking our hope on, then there's going to be a problem. Because if you look at the VAT that we restructured, it's a lot of money that has been thrown away. The COVID-19 and all those things were bringing in some substantial amount of money. E-levy has been scrapped because they were not good taxes. All of these things would now lead to where is government going to get the revenue from? And you just have to borrow to fund. And that is where we are now going back to the crisis that we came from. At the end of the day, your GDP, your debt to GDP is going to go up. You're going to build a lot of interest liability. The minister mentioned that 2027 and 2028, interest alone is going to be 111 billion Ghana cedis. This is aside the salaries and other things that you need to pay to government workers. So if you are building so much interest liability because you have borrowed so much, then you are heading for crisis.
That's true.
To get to a point nobody will lend to you again, and then you will not have money to pay for government workers. Teachers are going to strike. Doctors are going to strike. Then we are in trouble.
I see. I want to understand something. The major argument behind the reforms is that our revenue challenge has not only been about tax rates, but also about a lot of inefficiencies. And I think you mentioned some of them, in terms of leakages and even weak compliance generally. Now, government is now pointing to improve customs administration and digital systems as examples of how they can be able to do this. I want to know, from where you sit, has that been the challenge? Has our challenge historically been more about how much we tax or how effectively we collect the taxes?
I think it's about the effectiveness. Most of the times we're using a lot of manual means. Take, for example, the customs. What we heard, there's one story we heard was that there was an importer or some group of importers. They will go and import from, let's say, need to be limited in China,
Mm.
$100,000. They will transfer the $100,000 to you, to your account. But when they come to the port, they will say the item costs 20,000, so they will pay duties on the 20,000. So need completely, you realize that there's a discrepancy. If you bought a thing 100,000, why are you declaring only 20,000
Right.
in order to pay lower duties? So for me, it was about the way we were administering the taxes. Again, today, if let's say an informal sector person, a plumber, comes to build your house, the guy will take his money and go. He will not pay any tax because he's not in the formal sector. And there's no way the tax authority will be able to track him. So whilst you are earning salary of, let's say, 2,500, or the security man earning 1,000 cedis and paying taxes, the other guy who is earning 25,000 for the masonry work or plumbing work is not paying anything.
Yeah.
So it was about the administration. How do we ensure that all taxable income passes through the tax net for us to tax it? And so that is where this new technology preaching for some of us will play a key role. AI has come at the border because the border is a controlled environment. So we are able to, deploy some technology. Now they can match transactions across and deal with it. So if we're able to change the way the administration is done, I believe that we'll be able to, achieve our revenue targets.
All right. Franz, please hold on for me. I'll just announce the phone lines in case anybody wants to join the conversation, and then we can continue. We'll talk about tax compliance very soon. So if you just tune in, this is Business Breakfast on Z101.9 FM with me, Nature B. Hammond. This morning, my guest is Francis Timor Boy. He's a tax analyst, and we're talking about the new tax reforms and whether that can be sustainable, whether government can cut taxes and still be able to raise significant revenue. And we're saying, I mean, my guest has already said that it's actually realistic and that's something that is possible, but there are few things that need to be in place, and we'll talk about some of them very, very soon. You can join the conversation on our social media platforms. Send us a WhatsApp on 0544 321019, 0544 321019. You can also engage us on our social media platforms. We're streaming live on Facebook at ZFMGH, and on YouTube we're at Z Multimedia. Please drop a comment under the live stream, and I'll read your messages for you so that we can respond to those that require some response. All right, Francis, let's continue the conversation. So a major focus for all of this is compliance. Now, what do we have to do differently now to improve tax compliance? And I want us to help put this into perspective, because I know that people don't comply sometimes because of the lack of trust. How cumbersome the whole process of filing is, even the enforcement, taxpayer education, and all of these things. Sometimes people don't really comply because of them. What do we need to do differently to be able to improve our tax compliance as a nation?
So I think there has been some promises in the pipeline, and for me, I wish that we stay by them. First one is the technology. So technology is where we stop the use of manual things to now move to a technology-driven tax administration. And indeed, the former vice president used to always say it. He said, if you go to Estonia, transactions are technology driven. And so they have one of the highest tax compliance rates in the world. And they depend on their own internally generated resources to build their country. So the first is technology. And we cannot write that one off. Ghana needs to invest more in the technology. We have seen the AI being deployed, the customs revenue. And clearly we were told that a 17% increase in tax revenue has come to the coffers, and we're expecting to raise over 302 billion, 302 million cedis in the first year of its implementation. That's fantastic. We are hoping that government is able to roll out the fiscal electronic device, and this device is going to act like POS. There is also another angle which they are trying to pair. They are saying that when people traditionally buy goods, they don't collect receipts. So for that matter, let's encourage them by collecting the receipts. So there's going to be the VAT reward scheme where governments can award cars, can award consumers for and collecting receipts. Then you enter those receipts into a lottery. You can win phones and other things. So if I know that by merely collecting receipts, standing there and say, please give me receipts, and I can win phones and other things, I'll be contributing to this measure.
Yeah.
Trust me, the major area that we need to focus is on VAT. But it is not just the compliance. I think that people also do not trust the system. And so, for example, taxes are very painful to pay. And so, if I pay it and I don't see the taxes being used for the right sources, it's going to be a problem. And that is why we always encourage that voluntary compliance should be one of the key tools. So, we hope that the government will continue on its tax education, because some people do not even know about their tax obligation. The 3 years sustained tax education, we're not seeing it much. I believe that we should go down to the communities, the chiefs' palace, the churches. Let's go and preach there. Why do you think people pay tithes without being forced? But when it gets to taxation, they don't. They know the use of the tithes. They think that the tithes are going to be used to build the churches, to take care of the church. So we should be able to tie down the tax revenue to some tangible areas. We were all happy when we had the Accra Express Road. If I'm driving on that road and I know it is my tax revenue which is used for it, I mean, I'll be so glad.
Yeah.
We all need our country to be developed. So we need to trust in the system. Okay, for people, being punished for spending government money. When you are listening to the Public Accounts Committee, and sometimes you hear some of the things that you hear, it frightens you that, hey, should I go and pay tax? And if I pay, is it going to worsen the situation? So I agree with you. Trust is a key thing that we need to build. But above all, we need to improve on our tax administration system.
I see. And I was actually going to come to the issue about enforcement and voluntary compliance. We're trying to move to voluntary compliance. I think that's the ultimate. When people voluntarily, comply, it makes things better. Maybe let's take that as a separate question. I know you touched on it briefly, but how can we move from enforcement-driven compliance to voluntary compliance? What do we realistically have to do?
So the fact, okay. So again, maybe I will repeat the trust element. You see, before people voluntarily comply, they must first of all see that the tax revenue is being used to benefit them. Okay. And we must see this in the Public Accounts Committee reports. If people have misapplied tax revenue, we have to deal with them. That's number one. Number two is that the laws must work. If people see that if I don't pay, nothing will happen to me, why will I go and give the money? Why, if Kofi has paid, fine. Kojo has not paid, nothing happened to him. I can use the money for something else. So we must see the enforcement and the punitive measures applied to non-tax compliance in the country, and maybe not too harsh in such a way that it can also deter them. There's a research that shows that if people feel that there is no punishment for non-compliance, they will simply not comply. And again, education is key. Like I mentioned, people do not really know their tax obligation and even what the tax revenue is being used for. So when was the last time the minister has come and said, oh, like the HIPIC initiative, your toilet within the community was built by a tax revenue? When was the last time they've been able to publish and say, oh, Accra people pay more taxes or Kumasi people pay less taxes? So disclosure, publications, education, all of these things will build a system where people will voluntarily comply. I believe that if we know the benefits of the tax payment, people will comply.
I see. All right, Franz, let's talk about the informal sector challenge. I think that this has been one of the conversations that have been around for a very long time. sometimes I wonder why we haven't been able to, do some of the things. And maybe I'll ask you before why do you think we haven't been able to get the informal sector into the tax net? We've been talking about expanding the tax base for years. Why haven't we been able to do that?
So first of all, I think that our definition of the informal sector, we still have an issue. We need to really clarify that point. Sometimes
Can
we
you
think
explain?
that they are. So I think that sometimes we believe that they are the people within Makola or in the various markets. Okay, so first we need to define who are the informal sector. Trust me, there are transactions within the former organized, identifiable organizations, yet they don't pass through the tax net. I believe that any transaction which does not come to the attention of the tax authorities should be classified as an informal. But then let me go back to what we know, the informal sector we know. You see, our country is built on a structure where people do their own job. We use a lot of cash transactions. So at the end of the day, I always say that unless GRA uses magic to identify how much somebody owns, and again, the transactions are so disintegrated. Something is happening at Lands Commission, and the GRA doesn't know. Something is happening as the Registrar General, and the tax authority doesn't know. So, to what extent are we able to integrate all these systems? And the point I'm trying to say is that these are former institutions, but they are disintegrated. And because of the connection which does not exist, things happen at the blind side of the tax authorities. Can you believe that under our income tax law, if you buy a land and you sell and you make a gain, or you buy a car and you sell and you make a gain, you make a profit, you are supposed to pay tax on this. The plumber who comes to your house to make fix the problem, any money you pay to him, he's supposed to declare and pay taxes on them. The question is, how do we solve all this problem? We are unable to solve all this problem. And another layer is that the district assemblies also go around trying to collect some levies and some fees.
Yeah.
And because some of these people think that they are government, that is tax. So there's that misconception. The whole thing has been boxed into one, and we don't even know where to start from.
Right.
We see the cocoa seller, of course, who can be described as an informal person, work somebody and making some money. Yet the cocoa seller, after making the money, he goes, takes all the money away. There is also another research I've also seen, which says that the people in the informal sector are really not making any money, but they are surviving just like that. Another research also shows that a lot of transactions happen in the night. So it is a whole area which, for me, has been understudied. And we need to sit down and unpack all of them. There are a lot of SME, small and medium entities. Recently, the Statistical Service did some research, and they said about 92% of businesses in Ghana are small and medium-sized enterprises. Yet we have not been able to deal with those areas properly. Some have also argued that the tax laws that we are using is not fit for purpose for these small entities. So let's come up with a different tax law. So you see the problem. We need to start from who are the informal sector, where are they, what do they do, so that we'll be able to unpack them one by one to tax them.
Francis, there's a school of thought that says that the lack of political will also has a role to play in there. I mean, because some politicians actually fear, losing elections because of taxing the Ghanaian people, and some people point to the last election and how because of some taxes and things people voted again. Do you think that is also the case?
I agree perfectly, because like I said, if the people do not even see the benefits and the real tangible impact of the tax they pay, they will resist. So at every point in time, politicians have either failed to deliver that tangibly, And so anytime they attempt to go and impose taxes on people, the other party will pick it up. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
taxes on Kayaye.
Yeah.
Taxes on Kayaye was an attempt to say Kayaye people may make money which is similar to somebody who is employed in an organization and providing security service. I know some security employees who earn 700 cedis. If you put all the Kayaye or this talker in a month, that person is also likely to earn something like 700 cedis. When government decides to go after them, then another party says, oh, you are taxing Kayaye. And so they try to take some political points from there. So the political will to tax the informal sector is also there. And I want to believe that it is driven by the fact that the people are so vulnerable, and they believe that if you come there and decide to ask them to pay their fair share, because we fail to provide the needed facilities that they need, the other party will say, see, this government is coming to chase your mega money. So until we have a neutral policy to deal with the informal sector, where we say, look, this is the law, Parliament has passed the law, let's use it, then we'll be able to disassociate this political influence in the informal sector taxation. But I agree with you, it's a big issue that we need to sit down and come out with proper legislation, proper definition of scope before we'll be able to tax them. And so because we are unable to do that, we always come in the form of indirect tax. And for indirect tax, unless you don't buy, whether formal or informal, you buy, you consume, you go to the mall, you buy the tin of milk, and then we slap the taxes on you. That is the problem.
Right. So we need to check that. Now, one more thing on that, and then I think our time is up. There are other things I wanted us to discuss, but because of our time, we won't be able to look at all of them. One thing too is that people say that if we crack down on the informal sector, or, I mean, not crack down necessarily, maybe, let me choose my words right. If we find a way to bring them into the tax net, what will happen is that it's going to discourage entrepreneurship. First of all, do you agree with that? If you agree or not, how can we improve our tax compliance in the informal sector without discouraging entrepreneurship?
No, I don't think entrepreneurship discouragement has anything to do with tax compliance. You see, if we intend to have special incentives for entrepreneurs, which I believe we have some, just that they are in some special sectors. For example, if you're a young entrepreneur and you are into some selected, we call it priority sectors, you don't pay some taxes. Of course, you don't want to give tax incentive to people who are doing petty trading. You don't do that. You look at the priority areas like manufacturing, horticulture, and all those things. That one, there's a current incentive for entrepreneurs if you are less than 35 years and you are into those areas. So that these are rather encouraging entrepreneurs. So if we are not careful and we say, oh, we don't need to tax these people because they are young entrepreneurs, then at the end of the day, who is going to bear the taxes? What I would rather recommend, and I think we've made these recommendations before, is that when people start up, especially in the early years, you realize that businesses do not make profit. And again, let's also clarify, taxation, especially if you're an entrepreneur, is based on profit. We don't tax you if you don't make profit. So if we tax you only when you have made profit, and government says bring a little portion of the profit you have made to support government activities, to support the road, I think it's fair. Because if I am an employee and I'm working in a company and you are also doing your business, why should I pay tax because I'm an employee and you are not paying that because you are an entrepreneur? Okay, so what I would rather recommend is that we have a special tax policy which deals with this small, especially individual businessmen, especially if they are in their early years. So maybe we can say when you start up, the first 5 years or 2 years, if you make revenue up to some point, we're not going to tax you, especially if you are now reinvesting the same profit into your business. Those ones will help. In Ghana today, immediately you register your business and you go to GRA to register, the first thing they ask you is that pay some tax, which I find a problem. I find very problematic. Before I even start a business, so the law says that register your business before you start selling your first item. When I go to the tax authority, I'm going to register. They will say, "Oh, Francis, Timor, you are coming to do business. Okay, do provisional assessment. We call it advanced tax." And then they will let me. The question is, am I paying from my capital? If I'm paying tax from my capital, how does it work? We can change that policy. But I don't think that we should grant, or we should say we are not going to tax entrepreneurs because if we tax them, they are going to be discouraged. No, we can have special incentives, which I believe we have one currently for young entrepreneurs under the age of 35, pursuing some strategic activities in the country. That one exists. I don't think we should just leave it blanket and say we're not going to tax them.
All right. So the second part of my question was, how do we do that? How do we bring them under the tax net, or how can we improve tax compliance in this sector without, discouraging entrepreneurship?
So first, I will call for the existing tax law that we have. I think that is too complex for them. We have tried to use what we call the modified taxation. The modified taxation attempts to tax them at a flat rate, at a flat amount. So we are saying that if your turnover is between 20,000 and 200,000, you pay a flat amount. I think it's 500,000. You pay a flat amount. We don't register them for VAT because they are small, so we don't register them. And again, if you end, I think below 20,000, you pay 750 a quarter. So these are measures that we are using currently. If you go to the transport sector, we also have some fixed amounts for people who pay, people who operate, let's say, trotro, taxi, and all those things. We call it a vehicle income tax. Those are small, flat amounts. It doesn't get anywhere near their actual income, but they are small tax revenue that we charge them for their contribution also. So you can see that government has been a little lenient on them, but I think that it is not a fair assessment for them because some operators, I think Trotro pays 16 cities today from East Legon to Accra Central. I don't think that the whole quarter we can say his income is 16 cities. We can do more. So we need a whole restructuring of the informal sector, have a new law for them, educate them, and then encourage them to pay their fair share to the coffers. And I believe that when we do that, it will bring in the right taxes that they are supposed to pay to government.
Francis, thank you very much. Maybe let's do some vision casting here. So 5 years from now, if this actually works, this whole thing actually works, what would it look like? What would Ghana look like?
I think that 5 years from now, if we're able to continue like this, Ghana should not be going to the IMF anymore, which is a good thing. We should be able to bring down our borrowing costs so that people's investments will not be taking government when we reach some level. And I'm expecting the tax rate to even drop. VAT is high. Okay, VAT is still high. PY is still high. We should see some development in our country, if you ask me. Because as we speak now, the tax structure is so skewed and we have so much informal sector in the system. I mean, indirect tax in the system not be the only way. We should look at the other areas, property taxes. Why are the district assemblies not able to collect the relevant property taxes? All of these things, I believe in 5 years' time, if we're able to pursue this one, even if there's a change in government, we'll be able to raise the needed revenue for government to execute its expenditure plans.
Right. Okay, Francis, thank you very much for your time. I'm really grateful. I think it's been a very good conversation, and I'm grateful that you made time to join us this morning.
Nice having me too.
All right. Okay. So do enjoy the rest of your day. All right. Anyway, so that was Francis Timor Boy. He is a tax analyst, and he joined us this morning. We spoke about Ghana's new tax direction and whether that is sustainable. According to him, it is realistic. We can actually reduce, or cut taxes and be able to still generate revenue. What we have to do is to ensure that there's a lot of compliance. Let's ensure that technology is in place to track or to close all those leakages that usually make us lose all the that make us lose all the money that we sometimes lose as taxes. So that is that for today's conversation. We're back again tomorrow for some more interesting conversation. But thank you very much for joining us, and thanks to Francis Timor Boy also for being our guest this morning. Please take care of yourself. I'll see you tomorrow. My name is Nitrebi Hammond. Up next is The Brighter Side with Jeremy Okorie Amwako. Please make sure you listen to her this morning. She has a lot for you.